The cold bit through Michael Carson's worn jacket like a knife, his fingers numb as he rummaged through the dumpster behind Carmine's restaurant. 53 years old, with deep lines etched across his weathered face and eyes that had seen too much, Michael wasn't always homeless. 6 years ago, he had a job, an apartment, and a life. Now, all he had were the contents of a battered backpack and whatever he could salvage from the trash. The evening crowd at Carmine's had just departed. The rich and famous often frequented this upscale establishment in downtown Los Angeles. As Michael's calloused hands pushed aside discarded napkins and half-eaten breadsticks, his fingers brushed against something smooth and leather-bound. Pulling it out, he stared at a black wallet, expensive and barely used. "Someone's going to be missing this," he muttered, his breath forming small clouds in the crisp night air. Opening it carefully, Michael found several $100s in cash, credit cards, and a California driver's license with a familiar face staring back at him. His heart skipped a beat as he recognized the stern, weathered features of Clint Eastwood. "No way," he whispered, looking around as if someone might be watching. "No way." The decision that Michael made in that moment would send ripples through his life that he could never have imagined. A choice between easy money and doing what was right. A choice that would change everything. If you're enjoying this incredible true story, make sure to hit the subscribe button and notification bell. We share these life-changing moments every week, and trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next in this extraordinary encounter. Michael stood in the dim light of the street lamp, staring at the wallet in his trembling hands. He could buy warm meals for weeks with this cash, maybe even afford a motel room during the upcoming winter storms the Weather Channel had been warning about. No one would know, but something deeper stirred within him, a memory of the man he used to be. An electrician with his own business, before the accident that left him unable to work, before the medical bills drained his savings, before his wife left, taking what little remained of his former life. "This isn't me," he said firmly, closing the wallet. "This isn't who I am." 20 minutes later, Michael found himself at the entrance of the Beverly Hills Hotel, where the doorman eyed him suspiciously. "I need to return this," Michael said, holding up the wallet. "It belongs to Clint Eastwood," the doorman scoffed. "Sure it does, and I'm Brad Pitt." "Please," Michael persisted, his voice steady despite the exhaustion weighing on him. "Just check if he's staying here. The wallet has his ID in it." Something in Michael's eyes, a quiet dignity that years on the street couldn't erase, made the doorman pause. "Wait here," he said finally. "Don't move." As Michael stood there, the cold wind cutting through his thin clothes, he wondered if he was making a mistake. People like him were invisible to people like Eastwood. They existed in different worlds, separated by wealth, status, and opportunity. Inside the hotel, Clint Eastwood was having dinner with his longtime friend and fellow director when the hotel manager approached his table. "Mr. Eastwood, I apologize for the interruption," the manager said quietly. "There's a situation at the front entrance. A homeless man claims to have found your wallet." Eastwood's hand instinctively went to his back pocket. Empty. "How does he know it's mine?" Eastwood asked, his voice carrying that familiar, gravelly tone. "He says it has your ID in it, sir." Eastwood's dinner companion raised an eyebrow. "Probably just wants money, Clint." The manager shifted uncomfortably. "Should I call security, sir?" Eastwood stood up, his tall frame commanding attention even at 91 years old. "No," he said firmly. "I'll handle this myself." What happened next would alter the course of both men's lives in ways neither could have predicted. Sometimes fate has a peculiar way of bringing together lives that were never meant to intersect. Michael shifted from one foot to another, the cold seeping through the holes in his shoes. The doorman kept watching him, hand hovering near his radio, ready to call security at the slightest suspicious movement. "Just a few more minutes," Michael told himself. "Then I'll leave it and go." But before he could decide what to do, the hotel doors opened and a tall figure emerged. Even in the dim lighting, there was no mistaking Clint Eastwood. His jaw set, eyes narrowed in that iconic squint, he approached Michael with measured steps. The doorman immediately straightened. "Mr. Eastwood, I tried to—" Eastwood raised a hand, silencing him, then turned his full attention to Michael. "You found my wallet?" His voice was exactly as it sounded in the movies, Gravelly, direct, no nonsense. Michael nodded, extending the wallet with a slightly trembling hand. Yes, sir. Behind Carmine's. All the cash and cards are still there. Eastwood took the wallet, opened it briefly to confirm, then looked back at Michael with a piercing gaze that seemed to see through him. Why didn't you keep it? He asked bluntly. The question hung in the air. The doorman shifted uncomfortably. A valet parking nearby pretended not to listen. Michael met Eastwood's gaze steadily. Because it isn't mine. The simplicity of the answer seemed to catch Eastwood off guard. A flicker of something, respect, perhaps, crossed his face. What's your name? He asked. Michael Carson, sir. A tense silence followed. Eastwood's eyes never left Michael's face, studying him with the intensity that had become his trademark across decades of filmmaking. Come inside, Eastwood said finally. Have a meal. The doorman's jaw dropped. Michael blinked in confusion. I don't think they'll let me in looking like this, sir. Eastwood's mouth twitched in what might have been a smile. They'll let you in, he replied, turning toward the entrance. Come on. This unexpected invitation was just the beginning of a night that would challenge Michael's perception of himself and the world. But as he hesitantly followed the legendary actor through those ornate doors, he had no idea just how profound that challenge would be. Inside the opulent hotel restaurant, conversations hushed as Eastwood led Michael to his table. The maitre d' looked horrified, but didn't dare object. Michael, acutely aware of his dirty clothes and unwashed state, kept his eyes down, feeling the stares of the wealthy patrons burning into him. Sit, Eastwood instructed, gesturing to a chair. Michael sat gingerly, afraid to touch anything. Eastwood's dinner companion, a well-dressed man in his 60s, looked utterly baffled. Clint, what's going on? Robert, this is Michael Carson. He found my wallet and returned it. Every dollar still inside. Eastwood turned to Michael. This is Robert Johnson, a friend and producer. Robert's expression shifted from confusion to curiosity. That's unusually honest these days. A waiter appeared, nervously placing a menu before Michael. The leather-bound menu was worth more than everything Michael currently owned. Order whatever you want, Eastwood said. I'm curious about your story. Michael's throat tightened. I don't have much of a story, Mr. Eastwood. Everyone has a story, Eastwood replied, and I've got a good ear for them. As the meal progressed, something unexpected happened. Michael, initially reluctant, began to talk about his small electrical business, about the accident on a job site that left him with chronic back pain, about the medical bills that insurance wouldn't cover, about his wife leaving, about the slow, inexorable slide into homelessness. I tried to get back on my feet, Michael explained, his hands wrapped around a cup of coffee, his third. But once you're down, the world keeps kicking. Eastwood listened intently, asking occasional questions, but mostly just observing. There was something in Michael's manner, a quiet dignity, an absence of self-pity, that seemed to resonate with him. Where are you staying tonight? Eastwood asked when Michael finished his story. Michael shrugged. There's a shelter on 5th, but it fills up quick. I've got a spot I use under the Belmont Bridge when I need to. Eastwood exchanged a look with Robert, something passing between them that Michael couldn't interpret. I've got a proposition for you, Eastwood said finally, but it requires trust on both sides. The conversation that followed would leave Michael stunned, skeptical, and ultimately faced with a decision that seemed too good to be true. But as he would soon discover, sometimes life's most significant turning points arrive disguised as impossible choices. 2 days later, Michael stood nervously outside Malpaso Productions, Eastwood's production company. He wore clean clothes, purchased from a nearby store with money Eastwood had insisted he take, and had showered at the hotel room where Eastwood had arranged for him to stay, just for a few nights. Michael still couldn't believe what Eastwood had proposed. A job. Not charity, he had emphasized, but legitimate work. Eastwood's production company was renovating an old warehouse for storage of film equipment, and they needed someone with electrical knowledge to assist and advise. I haven't worked in years, Michael had protested. My license expired. We've got licensed contractors, Eastwood had replied. What we need is someone who knows what they're doing and can speak up when they see a problem. Now, clutching a small notebook the hotel had provided, Michael took a deep breath and entered the building. He was met by a young woman with a clipboard and a warm smile. "Mr. Carson, I'm Emily, Mr. Eastwood's assistant. He told me to expect you." She gestured for him to follow. "The team is already at the warehouse. I'll drive you over." As they drove through Los Angeles, Emily explained more about the project. "It's a passion project for Mr. Eastwood. He wants to create a space where independent filmmakers can store equipment at reduced rates." Michael nodded, though his mind was elsewhere. Was this real? Or would he wake up tomorrow back under the bridge? This whole experience nothing but a dream? At the warehouse, a buzz of activity greeted them. Construction workers, electricians, and production staff moved purposefully around the cavernous space. Emily led Michael to a group gathered around building plans. "This is Michael Carson," she announced. "Mr. Eastwood sent him to consult on the electrical." The project manager, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s, looked up. "Carson, Eastwood mentioned you. Said you'd spot things we might miss." She extended her hand. Diane Reeves. As Diane showed Michael around, explaining their plans, he felt a familiar stirring, the confidence that comes with expertise. When she pointed out where they planned to run the main electrical conduits, he immediately spotted a potential issue. "If you run it there," he said, pointing to the blueprints, "you'll create interference with any audio equipment stored nearby. Better to reroute along this wall, even though it's longer." Diane looked surprised, then thoughtful. "You're right. Good catch." She made a note, then continued the tour. By day's end, Michael had identified 3 more potential issues and suggested several improvements. As workers began to leave, Diane approached him. "Not bad for your first day," she said. "Eastwood was right about you. Be here tomorrow at 8? Michael nodded, an unfamiliar feeling expanding in his chest. Pride. As weeks turned into months, Michael became an integral part of the warehouse project. The temporary position extended as his value became apparent. He moved from the hotel to a small apartment, the rent paid 3 months in advance. "An advance on your salary," Eastwood had called it, brushing aside Michael's protests. Then came the day that changed everything once more. Eastwood visited the nearly completed warehouse, touring the space with Diane, while Michael worked on final electrical inspections. "Carson," Eastwood called, gesturing him over. "Show me what you've done with the control room." As Michael led them through his work, explaining the systems he had helped design, Eastwood listened attentively. When they finished, he nodded approvingly. "Good work. Very good." "Thank you, sir," Michael replied. "I appreciate the opportunity." Eastwood considered him for a moment. "Let's talk outside." In the late afternoon sun, Eastwood didn't waste time on small talk. "The project's almost finished," he said. "Have you thought about what's next?" Michael's stomach tightened. "I've been saving most of my pay. I should be able to manage for a while until I find something else." "I have another proposition," Eastwood said, "but this one's bigger." What Eastwood proposed next left Michael speechless. It wasn't just another job. It was a new beginning, one that would require courage, commitment, and faith in himself that Michael wasn't sure he still possessed. The next morning, Michael sat in a small office at Malpaso Productions, staring at the papers before him. A business proposal, startup funds, a partnership agreement. Eastwood wanted to expand the warehouse concept, creating affordable spaces for independent filmmakers across Los Angeles. And he wanted Michael to help run it, leveraging his electrical knowledge and the project management skills he demonstrated over the past months. "I don't understand," Michael said to Emily, who had brought him the paperwork. "Why me? There must be 100 people more qualified." Emily smiled. "Mr. Eastwood said to tell you that he's always trusted his instincts about people, and that second chances matter." Michael touched the papers gently, as if they might disappear. "This is too much." "Maybe," Emily replied. "Or maybe it's exactly enough." The decision weighed on Michael. This wasn't just charity, it was responsibility, trust, a chance to rebuild not just his life, but his sense of purpose. Could he do it? After years of merely surviving, could he remember how to build something that lasted? That evening, Michael walked to a spot overlooking the city. 6 months ago, he had been digging through dumpsters here. Now he held in his hands the possibility of a future he had stopped believing in. As the sun set over Los Angeles, casting long shadows across the city, Michael made his decision. Some opportunities come once in a lifetime. Some acts of kindness change everything. And sometimes the simple act of doing the right thing, returning a wallet to its owner, can set in motion events that transform not just one life, but many. 1 year later, the first Eastwood Carson Film Collective opened its doors in downtown Los Angeles. Michael, dressed in a simple suit, stood beside Clint Eastwood as they cut the ribbon. Photographers captured the moment, the legendary director and the former homeless man, now business partners. "This is just the beginning," Eastwood told the gathered crowd. "Sometimes the greatest talent, the most valuable perspectives, come from places and people society has overlooked." Michael, still uncomfortable with attention, simply nodded his thanks. Later, as he walked through the finished space, a building where independent filmmakers could afford to create, store equipment, and collaborate, a young woman approached him. "Mr. Carson, I'm Lisa Zhang. I've been homeless for 8 months, but I have a film degree. They told me you're hiring people who need a second chance." Michael looked at her, really looked, and saw what others might miss: the determination, the dignity, the potential. "Let's talk," he said, extending his hand. "I know something about second chances." As they walked through the building, Michael explained the vision behind the film collective. It wasn't just about affordable space. It was about creating opportunities for those who needed them most. Each facility would prioritize hiring people re-entering the workforce after hardship: the formerly homeless, recovered addicts, ex-offenders committed to change. "We believe talent can be found anywhere," Michael explained, "if someone just takes the time to look." Across the room, Clint Eastwood watched the interaction, a rare smile crossing his weathered face. The media had portrayed his partnership with Michael as an act of charity, but Eastwood knew better. In a cynical world, finding someone with Michael's integrity was the true fortune. When the wallet had gone missing that night at Carmine's, Eastwood hadn't thought much of it. Just another annoyance, easily resolved with a few calls to cancel credit cards. He hadn't expected to find something far more valuable in return. A reminder that character still matters, that dignity can survive the harshest circumstances, and that sometimes the most important investments aren't in things, but in people. As dusk fell and the opening celebration continued, Michael stepped outside for a moment of quiet. The streets where he had once wandered without hope now looked different. Not because they had changed, but because he had. A young man hurried past, shoulders hunched against the cold in a thin jacket. Michael recognized the look. He had worn it himself not so long ago. The careful avoidance of eye contact, the protective hunch of someone expecting the world to judge. "Excuse me," Michael called. The young man stopped, wary. "We're having an event inside. There's food and we're hiring. No experience necessary." The young man hesitated, suspicion warring with hunger. "1 year ago, I was sleeping under a bridge," Michael said simply. "Now I'm not. Sometimes all it takes is one person who sees your value." After a long moment, the young man nodded. "Okay, I'll check it out." As they walked back toward the building, Michael caught a glimpse of his reflection in the window, standing straight, eyes clear, purpose in his step. The wallet he had found contained money, yes, but what Clint Eastwood had really given him was something far more valuable: the chance to remember his own worth. And now Michael was passing that gift forward, one life at a time. Sometimes the smallest acts of honesty can trigger the most profound changes. A wallet returned, a conversation had, a decision to see value where others see nothing. As Michael Carson had discovered, sometimes life's most important turning points arrive in the most unexpected ways. And sometimes all it takes to change a life forever is the courage to do the right thing, and someone willing to notice when you do.